Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another installment of the Crypto My Money Show. My name is Martin, and I am joined by Joel.
Hey there, everyone.
So we want to pique your interest on money. I'm definitely very interested in diving into money and analyzing it at a deeper level than what we normally do in day to day. And I think it's important to understand what is money and what are the properties that make something money in order to then add on further levels of explanation of how money works, of credits and debits and different assets that are kind of built as layers on top of money. So we're going to touch today on what makes something money.
What is money? That is the $1 million question a lot of times because especially myself, I do feel like money is simple, but in many ways is very complex to fully understand. And in many ways, I feel like it's because just the topic of money itself is not something that in school gets taught a lot, be it public school or like a university or a college. So I'm pretty excited about this.
Yeah, and this is my personal opinion, but I don't think that we can even talk about whether or not money makes you happy if you don't even know what money is. I think it's like that question, does money make you happy, is almost made obsolete if you understand what money is.
That's a good point. It's a very good point.
Anyway, let's get started with the money. We use paper nowadays, or we use credit card, which is good as paper. But this system of fiat is actually relatively new in the grand scheme of things. Before the system that we have now, there were all sorts of systems and all sorts of things were used as money. And trade and barter was a very important part of the economy because you traded whatever you had or whatever you produced. And the majority of human history has actually been that. It was trade and barter.
And I think essentially, basically, what happened is things needed to adapt for the global economy or the economy of every country, each country to grow, right? So that's how the invention of the fiat currency money, as we know it, came to be.
Yeah. But the story of fiat is that's a whole topic in of itself, right? But it's like a progression on this movement, or not movement, but this trend of moving away from raw trade and barter to using proxies. And right off the bat, it was easy for people to use whatever they had that was scarce. So, for example, about 3,000 years ago, people realized that it's probably a good idea to standardize the weights and sizes of gold and silver and just use that to trade. And everybody likes gold. You can't do anything to gold. It's durable as can be. So it was a good idea. People rolled with it.
Yeah, can never go wrong with gold. So, if you go back in history, there's definitely like so many things that have been used as a medium of exchange as money. So there's obviously a couple characteristics, right, that makes money money. What would you say are those characteristics?
Yep. So there's three main functions that makes money money, and the stronger each function is, then the better the money is. So it's medium of exchange, unit of account, and store of value. Those are the three functions that you look at when you're assessing if something is money and how good of a money it is.
Interesting. So going into the first function, medium of exchange. So this is just, I guess as the name implies it, right? Just has to be something that can be exchanged. So it can literally almost in theory be anything, right? Rocks, any type of rock.
Rocks, food, cattle, precious metals, gold, silver, jewelry, land, houses, cars, anything. Tobacco.
Right. But I
whatever.
think it's whatever. And that's the also on the dark side, it could also be other human beings or other more illegal illegal things. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's
unfortunately.
unfortunately, but the medium of exchange can be anything that humans can come up with and are willing to exchange essentially,
Yep.
right?
Yep. So why did we move away from raw trade and barter? Well, like imagine that I sold shoes, I made shoes, and let's say that you produce cheese. I want cheese, but all I have to trade are shoes. I go to you and you say, "No, I have good shoes. I don't want your shoes, and I don't want to trade your shoes for whatever I need." And then I ask, "Okay, well, what do you need?" I need a bag of salt. Okay. So now I need to leave your shop, go find somebody else in town that will accept my shoes for salt so I can get salt. So I have to go and perform at least one extra transaction. So then I can come back with the bag of salt that you need so I can get the cheese that I want for the week.
Mhm.
That's annoying, right? So that's why people started to naturally gravitate away from using whatever they had as a medium of exchange and sort of coalesced with a few different options.
Mhm. In other words, it was turning to be too many exchanges, right? To get what you wanted, maybe to get, to get the milk that I wanted. Maybe I had to do like 5, 10 exchanges on a good day. On a bad day, maybe 100 exchanges, right? Like
Yeah.
it would be hard to tell. So I definitely see what you mean. Of like something had to be created so that there should only be one exchange, which nowadays is the U.S. dollar. If you're in the U.S.
Yeah, the more ubiquitous that your money is, the more complicated that you can create an economy. You also allow for specialization. Like say doctors or engineers. How do you pay a doctor if you're an agrarian society that produces a lot of food, clothing, that kind of thing? The doctor can only take so much food in exchange for saving your life or curing your disease. At some point, the doctor really needs syringes and medical equipment, but doctors aren't really going to doctors to get medical services, right? So you're not going to come across many instances of people bringing you medical equipment in exchange for you curing their disease. So if the society coalesces around something, say like gold, that can be a store of value, right, which is another function of money, then it allows the economy to become more complex and more specialized.
Mhm. Exactly. Interesting. So there's that medium of exchange has to be something that is exchangeable, that one person wants to exchange for something else. And then you touched on the other one, the store of value. It also has to be able to hold that value for as long as possible, so that it doesn't go bad, and then you just lose everything that specific item was worth. Like for example, milk or cheese, right? Those tend to go bad fairly quickly. So for that, sure, it can be exchanged, and it could be valuable from one person to another. But if the reason why you exchanged it was not so you could eat it right away, if the reason why you exchanged it was for in a ways for you to use it as savings, then that is not, that's not the right way to do it,
Yeah.
because it doesn't store the value.
Yeah. So good money that stores its value is like a battery. I charged this phone today before I left because I had the expectation that if it was charged, that it would provide value as a GPS, as a music playing device, as a way to stay in touch with the people that I care about. So similarly, we exchange our most precious resource, which is our time, and then also our energy to produce something, whether it be a good or a service. And then we want to be compensated in a money that stores its value because we're capturing that energy and that time that we expended. And ideally, we want to then use it for a decision in the future, right? Whether it be I want to buy a house in the future, or I want to go on a trip, or I want to have a safety net, whatever I accept as a as money in exchange for my time, energy, and everything that I rendered as services, I want that value to not fade away.
Yeah, and that's why gold was the way to go back in the day because it was the perfect way to store the value, right? I mean, gold is practically indestructible. I'm
Yep.
sure you can melt it, but it's pretty hard to destroy.
Yeah. So the better something that is used as money retains its value, then the better that money is.
Right. But it also has to be scarce, right? Because there's also a lot of other things that store value for a long time, but they're abundant. You can find them everywhere. Uh, there's a lot of other rocks besides gold that could probably serve the same purpose as gold, but gold is scarce, so a little bit harder to find.
Yeah. Uh, Fiat currencies, all fiat currencies in history have devalued and have eventually failed. And it's because they lack that scarcity. They might have the scarcity at first, or at least a certain degree of scarcity, but governments always have the perverse incentive to create new works, projects, or whatever to appease their electorate. So eventually, all money that is controlled centrally loses its value because it just gets printed to the point where it no longer retains its value.
You mentioned that money has to be, has to have the function of medium of exchange, has to have the function of storing value. Um, would you say that that's it, or would you say there's a few more functions that need to be fulfilled?
Yeah, so the third big function that I mentioned earlier is the unit of account. It's a lot easier for an economy to scale up if everybody is just using the same thing as a reference. You're no longer, as a cheesemaker, right? Going back to the cheesemaker example, you're no longer pricing your cheese in a block of cheese is worth X number of bags of salt, or it is worth X number of bags of I don't know, cloth, right? Like maybe like you accept payment in cloth because you use a cheesecloth to produce cheese, or maybe you also accept milk, right? So like if you're accepting all those things, well, you're pricing your cheese against three other items that are serving as money, but strong money serves as that unit of account for everybody, and everything can just be priced in like say dollars, right? Everything in the U.S. is priced in dollars, and it's just easy because everybody knows what what the unit is, what the value of that unit is, and then we can start then tracking like income, expenses, or as a company, we can track revenue, expenses, and then ultimately the profit. So if everybody's using one thing as money, then it becomes a lot easier for the economy to grow because you have that comparison against that one thing that is serving as money.
So essentially, it has to be something that has to be easy to keep account of, right? If not on paper, then mentally, so that you know how much you have, and to make it easier to understand how much you have, and easier to, like you said, price other goods, right? Price something so that you know how much that exchange is going to cost you on whichever currency you're using.
Right. And the better that something used as money serves as a unit of account, then the easier it becomes to be more for future oriented and be able to make decisions. It's harder to have choices if your economy is trade and barter and anything can be used as money because you're going to trade whatever you can. Whatever I can exchange for my shoes as the shoemaker story. Like I'm going to take it. I don't really have much choice because I need salt to be able to buy cheese. I need the milk. I also need some milk to drink. I also need XYZ. So you don't have a whole lot of choices. Whoever's going to accept your shoes, you probably want to exchange your shoes for whatever they're going to give you. Whereas if something is kind of like a uniform unit of account, then you don't have to go buy salt if you just need cheese. You just go buy the cheese. Right now, cheese is your priority. You want that cheese. So it becomes easier to prioritize. And because it becomes easier to prioritize, then you can become more future oriented. And if you really want, you can keep that money until XYZ situation. If you want, like if you're trying to save to buy land, well, then you can say, well, I don't need to have salt laying around for future purchases. I'm just going to go buy my cheese and it's worth this many dollars. And I'm going to keep the rest of my money that I have on the sidelines for a future purchase.
Right. So in your example right there, you hit on all three functions, right? The medium of exchange, the store of value. So whatever you're using has to be able to store the value for whenever you're ready to make that exchange. And then you have to, it has to be unit of account that you need to know how much you're going to be exchanging for that one item that you want.
Yep. So those are the three big functions. There are further attributes to money. I think those are secondary. These are the three big things. The money that we know of right now, this paper, this fiat, is actually pretty new in the grand scheme of things. Most of history has seen money that is decentralized and hasn't been controlled by either central banks or governments. So now that we've gone through the three functions of money, in the next episode, we're going to dive deeper into some examples of things that have been used as money and even some interesting things of like early US history where the US dollar wasn't the dominant money or currency of the country, which I think is going to be shocking to a lot of people. It was shocking to me, actually, when I started learning about the history of money and realized that what we know of now has not been the norm. So I think it's important for us to, now that we have this understanding of the functions of money and what makes good money, now let's dive into the history. And then we can layer on top of that the importance of, for example, like cryptocurrencies, and we can draw some parallels to things from either the present as metaphors or analogies, but also we can draw from history to kind of create this model of just money in general, of course, but then also how like a reference point for thinking about digital assets. So stay tuned for that second episode that will come out this weekend on Sunday. Crossing fingers that we don't have no technical challenges. But yeah, we'll just continue this exploration of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it should be a pretty good one. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, and I'm excited to then take all of this that we've talked about and do the turnaround and come back and explore digital assets with this new lens.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, yeah, thanks everyone. We appreciate your support. Thanks for watching the video. And as always, leave comments if you have questions or if you want us to clarify something or go deeper into something, reach out to us. And of course, like this video if you enjoyed it. It helps us quite a bit. And subscribe if you want to learn more about money and digital assets.